Hey everyone, welcome to this month's Double Take. I am Misty, and of course I'm here with
Natalie. I love Double Take Week. It's one of my
too.
favorite things.
It's so fun, and we're super excited because this month we're going to show you two great ideas for the bow tie block.
Yes, bow tie block is classic, and it really is such a simple block to make, but it can give you some really stunning quilts.
I agree. It's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, well, do you want to go first?
Sure, absolutely.
Great. Let's get started.
All right, so this is my quilt. I called it Bow Tie Blossoms.
It's so cute.
Thank
I love
you.
how it looks like flowers, how they just come together in a little wreath.
I love it too. And then you get this little secondary shoofly, which is so
cute.
Fun.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I thought the Kaffes were just perfect with those nice, beautiful brights. So
those colors always pop so great, really against any color you put them with,
true.
because they're so bold.
Yeah,
I love it.
I love it too. So to make this quilt, you are going to need one package of 10-inch squares, and I use this beautiful Kaffe Classic Spectrum colorway, which just means we get all those beautiful rainbow colors. Then for your background fabric, you are going to need 3 yards. That includes your little sashing. And for your backing, I used a 108, but if you use regular fabric, you need 4 1/8 yard. You'll just need 2 1/4 if you use a 108. And I use this pretty little kind of crosshatch for my binding, and you'd need 5/8 of a yard of that. So let me show you how to make this. So you are going to take your pack of 10-inch squares and you're going to pick your 36 favorites. That's all we're going to need for this particular quilt.
Nice.
And so I'm going to use this beautiful floral right here on top. And we are going to cut all of our 10-inch squares the exact same way.
Okay.
So I'm going to use my little 5-inch wide ruler here. And we're going to start by cutting our 10-inch square in half, both directions, so that we have 4 5-inch squares. Just like so. And then I'm going to stack 2 of those 5-inch squares up, because we're going to need those for 1/4 of our block.
Okay.
I'm going to set one aside
for another
project or later. And then we are going to cut this one in half, both directions, to have 2 1/2-inch squares.
Perfect. I love the versatility of layer cake squares.
Me too.
They work so well.
They really do.
You can get so many different amounts of sizes from things. There's just combinations and fun inspiration.
Exactly. And so we're going to keep 2 of these, and then I'm going to add the other 2 to a pile because I want part of this block to be a little bit scrappy.
Okay.
And then for our background fabric, we're also dealing with 5-inch squares and 2 1/2-inch squares. So I have those ready to go. So to start with, let's take our print squares, and we are going to take one of our background 2 1/2-inch squares, and we're just going to lay those on one corner. And we're just going to sew point to point on both of those. Yep.
Perfect.
And you can chain piece those if you want.
Yeah, I love these. Snowballs are really one of my favorite things to do because it can change the look of a block so much.
Exactly. It's a very simple thing that you can do to really mix things up.
Right. Make it your own or make it look completely different.
Yes.
And again, I'm using the diagonal seam tape, but you guys could draw a line or press a line. There's lots of different ways to do the sewing diagonally,
Right.
point to point. Seam tape works great for me.
Yeah, and if you were to draw that line point to point, you would be sewing right on the line, not next to it. That's what we're looking for.
That's right. All right.
Perfect.
These 2 are ready for you.
Okay, I will trim those apart and then cut this off to leave my 1/4-inch seam allowance. There's 1 and 2.
Sweet.
So we'll press these back really quick.
All right.
All right. So that part of our blocks, that's all you have to do. So now we're going to grab 2 of our 5-inch background squares, and we are going to put the same color print on one corner.
Okay.
And then, remember that pile that we added our other sets of two? We're going to pick, I did matching in the quilt behind me. So like within a block, they're the same color. So I've got two matching squares that are a contrasting color to the block itself.
But they don't have to be.
They don't have to be.
You could really just put any
square
fabrics
you
you want on that other corner.
Exactly. And honestly, you could mix all these up and you won't notice. But this is just how it worked for my brain.
Right.
And so then we will just sew point to point on both of these.
Okay. We'll do it.
Easy peasy.
Nice. I'm going to go ahead and chain piece them because it's a little less picking up and cutting.
Exactly. It saves some thread along the way.
A tiny bit.
Yep. Just a bit. Perfect.
There you go.
All right. So then just like on our other squares, we're just going to trim off our excess, leaving our seam allowance. These. Perfect. All right, so then now I will just press these back. I just roll them back. Seems to be the easiest for this block.
Yeah, these little snowball 5-inch squares can make so many different types of
Yes,
blocks too.
they
I was
really
just thinking
can.
that's the X block or the X's
Right.
and O's. Like that's just so versatile.
It really is. So then we are going to put our print corners in and we're going to match the same fabric color.
Perfect. That's what makes the little bow tie.
That's what makes our cute little bow tie. And so if you want to sew these together, they're just like a 4 patch, of course. There's the first one.
There you go.
There you go. Then we can open these up. We'll
And
press them in opposite directions. So
all right.
That's,
I wasn't sure if you wanted me to go ahead and stitch that seam.
You
or...
could have. It's totally up to
Okay.
you, but it's no big deal. We'll just press them. I'm pressing them towards the print in this side since it's fairly dark. I'm not too worried
They're
about
all dark. There's not really like a light dark.
Yeah.
But
There's some that are a bit lighter, but as long as you're going opposite directions so that middle seam
it'll nest
will
nicely and
nest.
not have too much bulk.
Exactly. That's all you're looking for.
Excellent.
Here we go.
Just gotta make sure it stays lined up as I go down.
Yep.
I want to go fast, but not too fast.
The good news is that whole middle is the same print. So
Even if
you get
you're
a little
off a bit, it won't show.
It's pretty forgiving.
Excellent. I love that.
All right, so we will press this. And a quarter of our block is done. I did go ahead and make 4 of these that I then put together, and that's what I called the block in the quilt.
Okay.
So you can see.
Yeah, this is so cute.
It's fun how those all come together, and it gives you this beautiful blossom. And so
I love it.
when they're sewn together, it looks like this.
Yay.
Which I just think it's a really fun and simple block, and it's very striking.
So
let's take a look at the quilt behind me. So I just did 3 blocks across by 3 down, so just 9 of these big blocks. I did go ahead and put a sashing strip in here with a cornerstone, which gives you this little shoofly, which I think is really cute. And I did notice after I finished this quilt that it would be pretty easy to add another border out here and finish off your little shooflies. So let me just show you how to do that, because I did include that in the pattern. You could just stop here if you wanted, but you know,
why not have
why
options?
not have options?
I love that.
And so to do that, it's the same size strip as your sashing, which it should measure 18.5 inches, but just measure your block and cut your sashing strips to that size. And so then I've done that here. And then all you're doing is snowballing two sides in opposite directions, and you can see how that's gonna fit in along the side here. And we would just add one more border all the way around.
And you can get all those little squares from the 5-inch squares we set aside earlier.
Exactly.
Perfect.
So there's plenty of fabric for you to do that. And so this finishes up at 66 inches square with the extra border. If you add that, that's what it would measure. I quilted it with time warp. And here is this beautiful big print on the back.
Love those backings.
I love it too.
So pretty.
Kaffe has such beautiful backings. So that is it. That's my quilt, quick and easy. And I guess, Natalie, you're up next.
All right, I'm excited. All right, so this is my quilt. I'm calling it Springtime Rings because it's
so cute.
It's just fun. They ring up together and make these cute little circles, and the rest of it is scrappy. It's definitely, I was going for X's and O's because I think they're so cute.
Yes.
And I decided to keep these fabrics together, which I think gives it like a little bit of cohesiveness and peace.
Right, gives
like
your eye a place to rest.
Exactly, exactly. But it's really fun to make, very easy, and sort of similar to yours.
I know, it's so similar, but it looks so different, which is really, really fun.
Yes. All right, so let's get started. So to make my quilt, you're gonna need one package of 2.5-inch strips, and I've used Meadow Sunshine Batiks by Kathy Engle for Island Batik. You're gonna need some background fabric, and that also includes our inner border. We will need 2 3/4 yards of that. I've used a white, so you can use whatever you want with, your fabric, but I thought white would be much more like springy and fun. If you wanted to make it a little more moody, you might use black or dark gray. That could be kind of fun too. For my outer border, you'll need 1.25 yards, and I just used I did a 5-inch border. I typically like to do halves, so if the inner's 2.5, the outer's 5. That works for me, but that
makes sense.
Whatever you like. If you want to make your quilt bigger, add another border.
That's right.
And then for my backing, I used this lovely pink floral. I think it's really cute. So this is a 45. I used 4 1/3 yards of that with a vertical seam. If you have a 108, you would only need 2 1/4 yards. Perfect. All right. So let's get started. It's super easy. Okay, so because I had 2.5-inch strips to work with, that is why these are all so much smaller than yours, which is totally fine. You can make a whole bunch of them and it's super fun. So from your background, you're gonna need 2.5-inch strips and 1.5-inch strips, and these will all be subcut into squares.
Okay.
So you'll take your background strips and cut them down into 1.5-inch squares and 2.5-inch squares. And so I'm just going to cut a few of these so we have enough to get started. 1.5s. I love this little ruler for this kind of stuff because it's just so handy and it doesn't feel like it takes up too much space on the cutting table.
I agree. It's one of my favorites.
All right, so we've got background 1.5-inch squares, and then we will also have background 2.5-inch squares, and then we'll do prints because we need roughly the same pieces out of our print. Now I'm just gonna cut this from the end, and then I'll cut that fold off when I flip it around. I find that especially with background, I can cut through at least 4 layers.
Yeah.
And batiks too, you can actually add more because they're so fine and flat.
It's
and
true,
like
and it's almost like they've been starched. So
batiks feel like they've been pre-starched for us all.
Exactly.
I love that. I do love batiks. They're just really easy to work with.
It's true.
So if you struggle with your fabric fraying or stretching and you're a beginner, you might want to give batiks a try because they're So easy to use. They don't fray very much. They have very little stretch.
It's true.
Honestly, it's like the difference between, you know, working with something like a jersey knit and a cotton.
It's true.
It's different, and it might give you a better result if you're struggling to keep things straight and flat.
That's a great tip.
So just something to think about. May not be everyone's cup of tea, but they certainly make the job easier as far as, you know, solid flat blocks and fraying.
Ooh, look at that.
Yeah, just about perfect.
Just barely have to trim it.
I love it when that happens. All the stars aligned. Okay, so we're going to need similar size pieces from our print strips.
Okay.
And one, I don't know if this is how it's written in the pattern, but one of my little hacks is to kind of cut them all at the same time. So I'm going to have my pieces lined up here. And I need to make each bow tie block, which this is the bow tie unit that I'm talking about. So to make each of these, you need 2 2.5-inch squares and 2 1.5-inch squares.
Okay.
So I've got them folded. So you're automatically going to get your 2 cuts at the same time. So I'm going to do my 2 2.5s. And then because I want to keep all of these like stacked up and ready to go, I'm going to do next my 2 1.5. So I'm just going to cut a 1.5-inch strip off of this and then subcut it down into its 2.5s. You just have a little bit of waste, which you can throw in your crumb bucket if you want to,
Those
or
tiny
just
little rectangles.
get rid of it. All right, so then I'm going to stack these up so that future me doesn't have to think too hard about what I'm doing here. I'm going to make sure that I put 2 background squares with each set. And also these white squares, I'm not going to line these up yet because they're for the secondary block. Okay. So we're going to hold on to those for just a minute because I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself on that part.
That's okay.
Okay. The first block, and the reason that I am going to say this is because we want these to match.
Okay.
And because of the way that the fabrics are lined up in the block and the fact that you have a ton of flexibility with scrappy ones, you're going to want to set these aside first. So choose the ones that you want to match, get them all cut and stacked and lined up, and set those aside because the rest of them can all just go with their friends and all the leftovers.
And be mixed.
Yeah. So each strip set, you're going to get enough to make this block, and then you'll have at least 1 bow tie block left over from your strip set. I believe you get 5. All right, so we're going to go ahead and make our block. This is our block A.
Okay.
And again, it's just because it all matches, and we want to gather together 4 that match. And these ones, we're going to put together a block just like this, but then the one difference is we're going to add a snowball to these corners, and that makes it have that shorter
That petal shape.
The petal shape.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So all we're going to do, we are going to put a snowball on one side of our print squares.
Okay.
They're just little. You can draw a line, you can eyeball it, or you can follow your seam tape. And then we're also going to put our print 1.5-inch squares to make these little blocks here in the middle.
Okay.
So we're going to go ahead and snowball these corners as well.
Then you can just chain piece them all.
Yes.
All right.
100%.
Perfect.
It goes nice and quick. It seems small and fiddly, but really this comes together fairly quickly.
Yeah. We go.
All right. So this is great. I want to not at all critical or anything at all. But I wanted to point out sometimes these little edges get caught, and my policy is if it's going to be caught in the seam, I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah.
So I would not pick any of this out. I would just go ahead and use it as
that
is.
tiny little corner just kind of folded up as it went under the presser foot since I was chain piecing. And it happens.
It happens a lot, especially with these little snowballed edges, but no big thing. All right, I'm going to go ahead and trim these off. We'll press them all. And then we can sew the whole block together, because that's as hard as it is. It doesn't get any easier, I think.
Bow ties are so simple, but you can
They
do so
really
much
are.
with them.
Yes. It's always fun to revisit a block, you know, a good old standard like the bow tie block,
Yeah.
and then just try all these new things and see how it comes out.
I agree.
It's a good idea to set your seams. I'm neglectful of that sometimes, but
We all are. We can get in a hurry and forget to do it.
yep,
you know?
yep.
But it does help. It gives a much flatter block.
Yeah. Keeps everything in line, makes those threads really bond together.
Yep.
All right. So now what we're going to do here is we are going to put our two print large squares is really where I start, just because you know exactly
Exactly.
what you're doing from there. And then we're going to put our print snowballs to the middle, and that is our entire block
Okay.
for this square. And I will have you sew these together, and you can go ahead and stitch the whole block. Just
Okay.
you know, do the two and then chain piece
Yep.
or open them up, flip them back together. I like to do that especially with smaller blocks, just because then I'm not up and down so many times, and really the seams will nest just fine with a little finger press. So I'll do my full pressing after I'm done with all those seams.
And this way?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to open those up and
Yep.
fold them together.
I find too that they almost automatically nest just naturally,
Yeah.
kind of the way they want to go.
It's true. They kind of have a mind of their own.
Yeah, and I'm good with that. Let them do their thing. Nothing is set in stone yet.
That's right. All right, so just took a few anchoring stitches and I'll line up that middle again,
Perfect.
sail down. There we go.
Excellent. It's so cute.
Tiny little bow tie. It's so
All right.
adorable.
So on these, I'm going to go ahead and set this seam, make sure it's all good and flat. I find that batiks just iron beautifully.
They really do.
They're so satisfying. All righty. And that is our little bow tie block for this one. So this takes 4, and I've got them here. So we're going to go ahead and put them together. I put all of my little background squares to the middle so that it makes this beautiful little circle.
Perfect.
And we'll just do 4 of them together, just like that. And then you join it, and it looks like this.
So cute.
Oh, the
I love
magic
it.
of television.
That's right.
Yes, so this is our A block, and
Okay.
they're just that easy.
Perfect.
All right, now all of our B blocks are made even simpler. So what you're gonna do is grab your 2 squares. These print squares stay completely solid. You do nothing to them. You'll grab 2 of your background squares, and you will add the little 1.5 inch
So you're only snowballing
prints,
those.
snowballing just these corners. And we put that together. We have time. Let's go ahead and just put these together
Okay,
real
sure.
quick. So you're going to sew from corner to corner on the line if you draw a line, and on the little fold line if you press it, or you can follow your diagonal seam tape, or you can eyeball it. It's corner to corner, and it's 1.5 inches.
And
Pretty
if you do
simple.
all of these in this whole quilt, you'll be so good at eyeballing by the end.
So good. That's a lot of practice. I will agree with that.
Yes.
You'll get over your fear of eyeballing things, especially that small,
It's so true.
because
There we go.
it's just pretty easy. Perfect. All right. Trim them.
We can at least set them in there so they'll get the visual.
Yep. Yeah, because it's very repetitive and super simple. So.
I think pressing is so satisfying.
It
It's one of my favorite
is.
things.
Okay, so again, we're going to put this together as a 4-patch using our prints, and we're going to put these little print snowballs to the middle. It makes a really lovely little bow tie block, very traditional. Yeah. All right, so then you're going to put these together in sets of 4, all different colors, scrappy, using all the all of those 5th blocks.
Yeah.
I mean, and you'll have enough to make all kinds of stuff.
Of course, yeah.
So that is this block, and once that's all sewn together, it looks like this.
These are so cute.
So then I'm just alternating these blocks, and I start with my X block right here. It's every other one. And then we're adding in this O block, which creates this really cute little blossom look. As these, I love how the backgrounds come together to kind of create this little extra blossom around the, does that make sense? Like around the little O block. It's almost like this is the flower center. And then we have this cute little background flower pedaling around it.
It's really cute.
I think it turned out really great. I'm proud of it. And I hope everybody else enjoys making it because it's fun and simple, but it looks really, it looks a little bit more technical.
Definitely. It's so great, Nat.
Yeah, super fun and easy. So to finish out, we added a 2.5-inch inner and a 5-inch outer. Mm-hmm. My quilting pattern is called Dollop. It's one of our newer ones, and I just think it's cool because it has like this really wavy, it's just a wavy pattern.
Exactly.
It's very much like a doodle.
Exactly.
So kind of fun and whimsical.
A looser stipple.
Yes, definitely. And then my backing, I mean, you can't go wrong. It's beautiful.
It is so pretty, that pop of pink.
It ended up being 69 inches square. So you could easily make it larger by getting another jelly roll and continuing, or
but it's the perfect size for like
perfect for a picnic.
Yeah,
it's an absolutely perfect picnic, and it's wedding season, so picnic quilts aplenty.
Yeah, you're ready to go.
Awesome. Well, I just love our bow tie block quilts.
They
turned out so great.
Yes, I agree. It was so fun, and like Natalie said earlier, it's fun to use a great traditional block as your starting point because you can really be creative and play.
Yes.
So
we were a little bit on the same wavelength today, but you can see they're so different, even just with little changes.
Exactly.
And I love it. I hope everybody else is inspired and that you enjoyed our double take on the bow tie block.
Yep. We'll see you soon.